1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Say something so I know I hear your voice.
How are you? Can you hear
I'm
me?
doing very well, thank you. Okay. So let's put the phone on silent because we don't want people interrupting us. We don't want anyone messaging. If somebody calls you, just feel free to pick it up, and talk to
I
your...
put it on fly mode.
Oh, you do?
So,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. You're a responsible adult, I guess.
I am, Igor. I am.
Yeah, and you're also... Well, you used to be my teacher. I guess you still are my teacher in some sense?
Technically, I could still become your supervisor.
My supervisor. Well, aren't you my supervisor right now? Like in terms of HRM and stuff like that?
No, because I'm more sort of like your like a counselor,
Yeah.
asking you questions about the stuff you're doing. And when you're in your third year, right, or fourth year?
No, I'm in my second year.
You're still in your second year.
Yeah. Do I look like I'm in the third year already?
I feel as if I know you for quite some years, Igor.
Oh,
As if
that's
you've
good.
been around
That's
at
a good
Hanze
quality,
for
right?
quite a long time.
Okay, okay.
But it could be that maybe next year you would do your internship, and then I would be your supervisor for the internship, or the graduation.
Talk about internship. I mean, I know this is a bit off topic, but like, do you think it's better to do year abroad first semester and internship second semester, or the other way around?
Oh, good question. I guess the majority of my students, they prefer to start with the study abroad and then do the internship.
Yeah, I think that's how most people do it, right?
Yeah, that's the study abroad is sort of like the fun part.
Yeah.
And the internship is more the sort of like the serious thing.
Okay, yeah, and I know it also takes a lot of effort and time to find like the proper internship, because right now, for example, I have contact with a third year student. I don't know if you know him. His name is Kirill.
Yeah.
You know him?
Well, there are a couple of gurus. What's his surname?
I forgot his surname, but he's Ukrainian, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And what he did is he also did first semester year abroad, and he went to China. And it's really fun to hear him speak about his experience in China, because it's quite an experience, and he said he would never, ever, ever do it again, but but still he doesn't regret it, and I think that's kind of amazing to do something which wasn't pleasant.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a bunch of things about China that he didn't like, including the air quality.
Yeah.
But he still doesn't regret doing it, and now he's doing his internship. But
in China as well?
No, right here in Groningen. But I think he's actually working like with Hanze University or something like that, like something related to Hanze.
Mm-hmm.
But he is not getting paid for it. And I know a bunch of students, well, not a bunch, but I know several students who put more effort into it. They weren't kind of putting everything off until the last minute, until the last day, and they managed to find like a company that pays them and provides them with I don't know, experience that they can later put on their CVs and stuff like that.
That's true. Yeah, it does take a lot of planning and organizing to get a good internship, and I guess I would say it's no surprise if I would say that planning and organizing might not be the best skill you have mastered so far.
Me? No, that's true. I agree with you, and I know why you say it. Obviously, I probably have missed every HRM deadline that there was, along with another student by the name of Hanwen. But I'm working on it, and it's true. I'm not really good at organizing. I'm actually a bit in disguise all the time. You know. Yeah.
I guess that would be you just asked me about the difference of sort of being a supervisor and a teacher or a counselor.
Mm-hmm.
If I would be your teacher, I would say something about these HRM deadlines. But as your academic counselor, I'm not saying anything about it.
Is it because you don't care, or because it's
because I want you to fix up your own mess?
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, and it's a very good advice, because at some point you have to, like, there are parents, of course. Everybody has parents, and if they're good parents, they will help you, and they will try to do a lot of things for you. Yeah. Especially if you're living with them, at the times of school, like high school, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But then, of course, at a certain point, everybody has to leave and has to kind of leave that nest, and try to take his own flight. And at that point, you need people like yourself who are going to be there and who are not going to be like your parents, and who's actually going to say, if you didn't do this, you have to reset next block, and if you don't reset it next block, then you're not passing, right? You're not getting those. How much is it? 2 points?
Usually for the ones you've had so far, it's 1.
1 point for
Yeah.
HRM. Yeah. So it's 1 point, but it's still a necessary
Yeah.
point that you can't pass the year without.
Yeah.
Without. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you're old and wise enough to realize why you should do it. And I'm not going to be the one telling you should do it.
Yeah. And I honestly agree with that kind of
Yeah.
type of thinking. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't introduced you. And I'm gonna wait a bit more before I introduce you, because I have to say kind of an important thing about this experience. Just to put some importance on this present moment, because it took a lot of planning. Like we've talked about planning with HRMs, and I'm not really good at planning, but unfortunately I had to engage with a bunch of planning and talking to the studio, and buying the camera and the tripod and scheduling as well. I know we had a lengthy email exchange regarding the time of our meeting, but all those things, while I was doing them, while I was planning it out, I always remembered and told myself kind of that it is all for this moment,
Yeah.
like the whole setup, the whole studio, the whole process of setting it up and making it happen.
Yeah.
It's not for the product that is hopefully going to come later on. It's not for something else. It's only for the sake of a conversation between or with another human being, right?
Yeah.
And now I think after I've touched on that point, I can talk about the human being across from me. Well, some things I wrote about you, but I'm gonna try my best to introduce you, but I want you to introduce yourself afterwards as well, and hopefully you can do a better job of it. So obviously, Mart Wegman, senior lecturer at the Hanze University. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Because at some places at the internet it just says lecturer at the Hanze University, but then at some it says senior lecturer.
True.
What is the difference?
Yeah, good question. The difference is that if you're a lecturer, you basically teach, and if you're a senior lecturer, you're sort of in charge of the design of the curriculum. So you sort of are, I guess you could say, one step higher, and you're more responsible for the entire program. So it's more on a, I guess you could say, a more strategic level.
Are you responsible for the program and also for other people, or only for the program?
Fortunately, I'm only responsible for the content of the program.
Okay.
And sort of for the promise that we give you, that is that if you graduate, if you get your diploma, that the competences that you have that are mentioned on your diploma are indeed the things that we have taught you throughout these 4 years.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I'm not responsible for anything else. So I'm not responsible for hiring teachers or for other like the organizational stuff. I can only talk about the fun stuff.
Right. So you don't have people who have to report to you and say like, this is what I've done, and you kind of correct them and stuff like this. This is not a part of your
Well, actually, since this year we that is a new structure that we have, and that is the case. So right now I'm sort of in charge of everything that has to do with IC year 1. So that's sort of like my team. So all the year 1 teachers, all your coaches and teachers for year 1 are in the same room. And, I'm sort of, I wouldn't say I'm their boss, but I'm the one who sort of is in charge of making sure that everything is sort of fluently organized and that the topics are discussed in the appropriate blocks.
Interesting.
And that if teachers have comments about a block or there is an evaluation from students, that I, and together with the colleagues, of course, will make sure that actually happens.
And like, so you have students and then you have colleagues. And is your approach with colleagues the same as it is with me when I don't submit my HRM assignment? Is it also like you have to solve your own mess, or is it more of a constructive criticism?
It's way different.
Really different.
When I'm a teacher, I have a role.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you're with your colleagues, it's just you're being yourself.
Then it's me, and then it's not entirely different, but it's definitely different. I would never say to a colleague, "That's your problem."
Okay. Well, interesting. Well, but you say it to me though, right? I'm sorry, this is a loaded question. Let's just ignore it. Okay. Well, it's interesting, and I want to touch again on the role of that you have to kind of get into when you're with students.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very interesting, and I'm gonna ask you the question that I asked you before we have agreed to do the podcast. I don't know if you still remember it, but when I asked you last time, you didn't get a chance to answer, so you will get that chance today. But before that, I just want to go further about what you actually do. So you teach, right, or lecture about media and communication theory.
True.
Correct? And also about film theory.
Yeah.
Can you talk about, because I don't think I've ever had you as a teacher about film theory.
No, that is true. Unfortunately, when we redesigned our new curriculum, or when we designed the new curriculum, I should say, we had to get rid of stuff that didn't really fit in the new program. And unfortunately, I taught a course on film history and film theory. We decided to focus on other topics rather than on film theory.
Why is film not interesting, or is it just not applicable to the program?
Yeah, the latter. Yeah,
Okay.
I hope you've seen that everything we do here is applied, right?
Yeah.
You need to design stuff for your client.
And
for
we actually work
organization.
with real kind of companies and clients.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
which
if
is kind of cool.
Exactly. So if we would give you like a theory, or we ask you to talk about about a model, or about framing, or about nudging, the assumption is that you're actually going to do something with these notions in the project. And with film theory, it was just a little bit too, generic, I guess, too abstract. And I really do think it's a shame. I mean, I really love talking about films.
Yeah, and I love
and
film
history.
as well. Yeah, and where did you learn about film?
In my university,
Which was, look at this research, Ruch
No.
University, right?
I'm impressed by the desk research, Igor.
From 1999 to 2006.
True.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
And what program did you do at the Ruch?
Communication and information sciences.
So when you were doing that program, did you already know what you're gonna be, like your career as a teacher? You already knew that, or at the time you just did it and you still didn't know about it?
I thought about it, because if you study or at least when I was studying, if you would study at the academic university, the assumption is you will be trained to become a researcher. And if you would look at the statistics and the percentages, you would see that only a very small percentage of the people graduating at an academic university would actually start working as a researcher. And when I was,
What does it mean, a researcher? What is that job?
well, if you graduate as at an academic university, you would start working as a researcher. You might want, for instance, to get your PhD. Yeah, it could be anything. You could be doing research on linguistics or on behavioral communication, and you should you're probably going to set up, depending on the type of topic, you would set up experiments and you would publish articles about this.
So
and
not desk
papers.
research, field research.
I guess.
Both.
I guess, yeah, it would be a combination probably. But you have to publish, you have to research and publish these results. And I sort of found out that when I was doing my master thesis, I think it wasn't even called master thesis then. It was still like, it was called something else, but it was the last stage. I guess you could say it's sort of the graduation assignment. I forgot what I wanted to say.
You were doing your master thesis.
Yeah, I remember. I found out that if you really want to sort of pursue a career in the academic university, that it's really sort of like this power play.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's sort of you have to struggle for money, and you have to convince people about your research, and it would be way more. At least that's what I saw with people who were working there. You really have to sort of go through a lot of stuff and distraction to actually get to the research you would like to do.
And what kind of research did you want to do at the time?
Well, film.
Film, okay.
Yeah. I did my graduation assignment on, let's say, the combination of like using historical documentary footage in Hollywood movies. So what happens if you sort of put like a real authentic piece of historical footage from the Second World War or something else into your fictional story? Does it sort of then increases the believability or the fact that it actually happened.
Yeah.
So that is what I sort of envisioned my research would be about. And I really sort of thought I should be doing this because I knew I would be capable of doing it. But then I also realized that, or when I wrote my graduation assignment, my father died. And that meant that, well, obviously I couldn't finish my graduation assignment within the time I was supposed to do it. And then I think I sort of spent like a year behind my computer in books, sort of hidden from society, writing my graduation assignment and writing my master thesis.
Did you manage it at the end? Did you write it?
Yeah, because it was one of the most I really felt very very happy. If you put me in a room and ask me to read books, I get very happy.
So I guess that means you're more of an introvert then. Personality-wise.
Yeah, maybe, but there is a downside because it's sort of I noticed, and I think that's why studying at a university is always a good idea. I also noticed that if I would if I would choose this path, I would become sort of like, I don't know, totally isolated from society. I would find it very difficult to sort of make the switch between the world of the theories and the books and the articles and going back to a normal life. And I also thought, well, I've been studying and reading, sitting behind my desk for like a year now, and maybe I should go into the real world again, because if not, I'm going to be like this, not like a bum or something, but I would become this
kind of outcast.
Yeah. I noticed that I have this tendency to sort of totally isolate myself, and
Well, I mean, I have that tendency as well. You know, like some people are very. I guess the way I make a distinction between like really social people and more of people who like to also prefer kind of being by themselves and really feel their best when they're by themselves. I think the distinction there is that the social people, they kind of get their energy from other people. They get their energy from the crowd, from the people around them. If you're at the concert, something like this, where the other type of people, like the introverts or whatever you want to call them, you know, just the people who like being alone as well, they get their energy kind of from the world, you know. Like, do you agree with that? Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, I guess it's that's safe to say. So yeah, I sort of thought I would really sort of had to protect myself from getting isolated, and then my supervisor from the university asked me whether I would like to teach at the Hanze for like one course. And I thought I should do it. I should sort of force myself to sort of get into the real world and have
and how
more
did you feel your first teaching class, your first time you had to actually stand in front of the class of students?
Well, terrible, of course.
Yeah, you felt nervous?
Of course, yeah. Didn't you feel nervous when you had your first presentation?
Really nervous, yeah. To the point where I actually couldn't stand, like I could stand, but my legs would shake. So I had to kind of play it cool and lean on the desk behind me, you know, and pretend that I'm just like a cool style, you know, just like
cool,
kind of chilling, like
cool
relaxed.
Russian?
Yeah. But of course, the truth was that I could barely stand on my feet, you know.
But you did pass, right?
I think so, yeah. And I think now with as time goes on, especially in my second year of the study, I think public speaking and presentations, they still make me very nervous, but actually I enjoy them and I want to do more of them.
Yeah.
The last one we had, it was like a written speech assignment when you had to actually prepare a speech and then just come out and read it. But you still had to, of course, deliver it with proper tone and to use a kind of orator voice and stuff like this. And I like writing a lot, and I like giving speeches as well. So that was probably the highest grade I got my whole course on that speech.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's just something I guess that I'm not bad at.
No.
But let's finish up last point from your biography, from your past, I guess. I don't know if this is correct. Maybe this is just some fake news from the internet, but you taught in Morocco.
Yeah, true.
You did teach in Morocco.
Mm-hmm.
In the capital of Morocco, right?
In Rabat.
Rabat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how you pronounce it, right? Because I didn't know how to say it. Like, is it Rabat? Is it Rabat? Or
I always say Rabat, and no one ever corrected me. So
how did your life bring you to Morocco? Tell me about that.
Well, that's a good question. Well, I think this was when I had been working at the Hanze for a couple of years, and
What year are we talking about?
I don't remember.
Okay, but it was long time ago, right? Like more than 10 years ago?
I guess it's maybe 9 or 10 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were working at Hanze?
I was working at the Hanze, and I had been living together with my then girlfriend,
Mm-hmm.
and then we separated, and I was in this sort of like transitional phase, and then they asked me to live and work in Morocco for a couple of months, and I thought, well, probably I will a couple of years from now I will hopefully have a family, a wife, and children. So if I want to do this, I should do it in this stage of my life.
Right.
So that was the first reason. And the second reason was that after teaching for international communication students for a couple of years, I realized how incredibly Dutch I am.
What do you mean by that? How Dutch you are, like in your habits or in your language, or in what sense?
Yeah, in the assumptions the expectations I have from students.
Okay.
Maybe not everything, but some of it at least.
Maybe you weren't as culturally sensitive as you should have been.
No. I guess that's true. I totally or hardly took indirect Asian students into account.
Interesting.
And I noticed that this was a flaw in my teaching style and my sensitivity. And I thought, if I am gonna pursue a career in teaching international communication, the least I should do is get some form of experience in teaching for.
But in your defense, though, it's difficult with Asian students. Like even as a student myself, like of course we have Asians in the class,
Mm-hmm.
and like some of them are very active and very open and they like to answer questions, of course, but a lot of them don't like to answer questions, and a lot of them don't like speaking in general,
True.
And what they like to do is sit at the back of the class and I don't know what they do, to be honest, but for them, I don't know if it's their culture, but they're way more, I guess, closed to others.
I don't know. Yeah, that's how we perceive. At least that's how I used to perceive it. And now my theory or my assumption is that they just have, or not all of them, of course, but they have a different way of conceptualizing knowledge. They perceive study materials or theories or the stuff that you would discuss in a lecture in a different way than you might have if you're from a Western European culture.
Do you think their way of perception is more like technical oriented, I guess, or more systematic?
That's something I don't know. No, I guess my gut feeling would say it's more like of a holistic approach.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if they're more. I don't even know what you mean with technical, to be honest.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know either. But no, but it's true. And the other thing that Kirill said to me after being to China, obviously China being an Asian culture, Asian country full of Asians, he said that for them, and I guess that's a common fact, but I just haven't paid attention to it before he told me about it, is that for them, like looking a person in the eyes is considered like something private.
Yeah.
More private compared to European countries.
True.
And even if you're buying something in the store or you're just interacting with anybody really, unless it's like your intimate partner or your close friend or maybe your family member, for them it's considered impolite
True.
to look somebody in the eyes,
Yeah.
at least for longer than maybe like a few seconds.
Yeah.
Uh,
True.
What do you think about that?
I guess you're right, and I guess for us it's well, maybe not the opposite, but maybe almost the opposite. I'm studying. I'm following meditation classes.
Me too.
Really?
Wait,
Oh,
don't tell me it's the Sam Harris meditation app that you have
I
purchased.
also downloaded the Sam
You
Harris
did?
meditation app.
The
That's
trial version?
the trial version.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
But you don't like it?
Well, I wanted to talk about. I actually take physical lessons right now.
Okay.
Next to the, I also have another app, and I had my second course, like my physical course, I think yesterday evening, 2 days ago.
Okay.
And the first thing they do, this meditation teacher does, is he sits and he forces all of us, before we do anything, before we utter one word, to look everyone in the room in the eyes.
Is he Asian?
No, he's Dutch. He's
Dutch.
influenced by Buddhism and Zen meditation and stuff.
And for how long do you have to look somebody in the eyes?
Yeah, like a second or something.
Okay.
But it's sort of like acknowledging each other's presence in the room. And yeah, it's in a way confronting, but at the same time it's good. But I could also imagine that it's difficult for maybe for Asian students.
I think it's difficult for everybody. Even if it's even more difficult when you're presenting something and you have to keep an eye contact with a number of people. And I think it's fair to say that eye contact is indeed something private.
Yeah.
But it's just that I think European cultures, for some reason, or maybe not European, but like a Western civilization, for some reason have decided that it's kind of worth to break that fear or that level of privacy and to overlook the fact that it's private and to still be able to, even with strangers, to look somebody in the eyes. And maybe it's just a kind of a question of trust, which is kind of interesting. Back in the old times, to decide that. There is some benefit into recognizing another person by looking at his eyes, know. And for some reason in Asia, the culture kind of went a different way, a different path, and it's not necessarily bad, but it's just something different and something to consider.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that they are less intimate or something. I just think that they have different forms of expressing intimacy or something.
Yeah, and maybe it also has to do with kind of individualism. Maybe, we know that in Dutch culture, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not Dutch, but you guys value kind of the individual, like the privacy of an individual, the strength of the individual, stuff like that, like really putting a lot of emphasis on the single kind of human being. And maybe in Asian cultures it's more collective.
I guess so. At least that's if you look at what the research has shown and the stuff that we talk about in class with Hofstede and with the cultural dimensions.
Yeah, don't question me on that because I still have to do the reset first.
I'm not going to.
Okay. And the last thing I guess I have to say about the eyes and the eye contact is interesting to me, but I read somewhere that's like the only, like, just tell me what you think about this phrase. The only problem with our eyes is that they tell too much. Like, do you agree with that, or do you think it's not true?
It sounds like a beautiful sweeping statement. I do believe I can really get a lot from just looking at people in the eyes. Sometimes you just meet someone and you make a connection,
right?
And you feel you get a lot out of this person. Sometimes I can even predict which students will fail foreign or defense just by looking at them.
Wow, is that something is a skill that you developed to be able to read somebody like that? A student?
I guess so, because I would never be able to do this like 10 years ago.
How do you know? Just by their eyes?
Yeah.
You know if they fail or not?
Yeah. Almost. Not every time, and I'm definitely not...
what is that? What are you catching when you look at them? Like, are you catching like a bit of insecurity or fear or laziness, or what is it that tells you?
Yeah, insecurity, Well, maybe I should answer the question in the opposite way.
Okay.
I can sense when people are really willing to show how much they know. I don't know if you recognize this in any of the oral defenses that you've done, but in general, at least the IC students that I teach, they really like to show me how much they know.
Right.
And how much they have been working in the project.
They like to flap their gums sometimes.
Yeah, especially the German girls, of course, but also
Okay.
the majority of all the other students. They want to show me, look, this is what we have been doing, and this is what I know, and this is what I've been doing. And I also sense when this is this motivation is less present in students. Yeah, and of
Okay.
course, it's not like a one-on-one thing, and it's certainly not that I sort of take this into account. But I could check by asking people. If I ask people 2 or 3 questions, I sort of get a feeling, and usually that's almost a one-on-one prediction for whether they're going to pass or fail.
Well, that's a good transition, because now we're starting to talk about your kind of role as a teacher and the things you learn along the way of your experience, many years of teaching students, you know. And I think that's also how you know if material, that the way you're presenting the material to the class is good or bad in terms of just interest of the people who are listening, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when you speak to the class and you see people looking at you and paying attention and being silent and focused, then it gives you kind of a signal or a hint that something that you're saying, something in your words, is resonating with them.
True, that is true. At the same time, I always, I do think I need to nuance this a bit, because I used to think when I started teaching that the people with the loudest voices, the people who would raise their hands because they want to show how much they know, that they would get the highest grades. But I pretty quickly found out that is really not the case. Sometimes the silent students, the one who you hardly notice in class, they're the ones who are getting it. They just have a different way of sort of showing whether they get
They
it.
just
Yes or
prefer
no.
maybe to keep it to themselves or something like that.
Yeah, and it's definitely not true that the ones who are the most present and visible in class, that those are the students with the highest grades. Yeah.
Well, that's good. And usually those students are girls, German girls, or no?
Yeah, in our study program, I guess if you could even prove this by looking at the figures. I guess the student category with the highest grades, I would be surprised if that would not be the German girls.
Yeah, that also tells me a bit that there is something in their culture as well.
Definitely.
You know,
Yeah.
just as we've been talking about Asian culture, like there is something in German culture that rewards or maybe teaches excellence and
Yeah.
high level of output. Or
Yeah, that's true. I guess maybe I wanted to refer back to what you said about this friend of yours, Kirill. Kirill, who went to China.
Yeah.
And maybe something about teaching in general, because I guess you could say that I think you know Cor, right? Or
Core,
my
yes,
colleague.
yes. I know he loves video games,
Yeah, true.
which I also like. Okay.
He loves stupid stuff, but
Yeah.
that's another issue.
Yeah.
I think he said something, and I might be paraphrasing wrong, but I think he said something about that teachers are interested in teaching students stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and students are interested in getting grades.
Well, majority, I would say, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And I guess, that is a difference.
There is a disconnect there, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there's a disconnect, and I'm not blaming students, I'm not blaming teachers, because I used to approach the study myself in that way. How much do I need to study to get like a relatively good grade?
Mm-hmm.
And I was more interested in getting a grade for the exam, rather than thinking, what can I do with the knowledge that I was offered? And that's sometimes what I notice with many German students.
They're
German
focused on
girls.
the grades.
I have discussions with them, also with the AC students from your batch.
Okay.
What is it about?
Drop some names. Who are you talking about?
Josephine.
Josephine Schmocker, shout out. Is my very good friend. Hopefully, oh yeah, okay.
Marlena as well.
Marlena, yeah.
Also with Lara, I guess.
Beautiful girl. Okay.
And there are more. I might not talk about this with them like during all the conversations we have.
Yeah.
But I do want them to think about this. Are you interested in being confirmed in the fact that you are good at something. So, or you know you're good at something, and it's the only thing you're interested in getting a high grade, so that you are.
And what do they
confirmed
tell
again.
you when you say, like, do they just come out right away and they say, yeah, like I want the grade? You know?
Well, no, I'm not talking about what Marlena or Josephine or Lara
No, just
told
in
me. But
general.
in general, they recognize it, but they also say, well, if I want to be getting an entry for this the follow-up study program, like a master's, or if I would like to get a good internship, I do need to get high grades. If I don't have the high grades, I'm not going to enter the program. And throughout my teaching career, I did notice, and I know this sounds a bit cliche and corny, but we can show you how many things you're supposed to know on your diploma, and we can talk about learning outcomes, and we can talk about competences, and that's all beautiful.
Yeah.
But in the end, the stuff you really learn and the things that you will remember most are the things that we have not designed. It's the experience that Kirill has when he feels alone walking in this polluted environment in China. It is you sitting for your internship somewhere, meeting new people. It's this meeting that you have with.
So it's your own experience instead of being taught something.
Yeah, and it's about, we can't predict what you will, from which things you will learn most. And maybe you will learn way more from hitting rock bottom by getting fails. I think in many cases, if a German girl fails something, she will learn more from this than
A valuable lesson.
Getting a high grade.
Yeah.
If you get a fail for your oral defense or for an exam, and I know it's difficult to look at it like this, but yeah, see it as something like a present. You are now confirmed in where you are and where you stand.
Do you think that's also can be said not just for studies but life in general? How if something shitty happens in your life, you know, like I don't know, like something terrible happens, like maybe you break your leg, or maybe your loved one gets sick or dies, or just any hardship. Do you think it's useful to interpret that as not a punishment but rather a well, you said a present, but I don't know if that's the appropriate word, but just something, an opportunity to reconsider where you stand and what are the important things?
At least that's how it works for me. And I know that is, you could call that to be like a coping strategy.
Yeah.
But I have developed this, I don't even develop it. I think it's just something that is, I can't even not do, that any negative thing that happens in my life, I see that as something positive. Even the most terrible things happening. I just told you about my father dying.
Yeah. How did you cope with that? I mean, such a tragedy.
I of course I was devastated, and there was a lot of grief and sadness.
Yeah.
But it sort of gave me this idea that I should do all the stuff he taught me. So if I would become a parent, father, that I should be the best father I could, in order to sort of pay honor to him, to show him. I don't know if he can still see what I'm doing, but that all his efforts were not for nothing, and that I do what he taught me. So I receive an incredible amount of energy from thinking about my father, even though he's not here anymore.
Well, that's really good, and I think there is something. There is like a religious perspective there that you almost take. You know, maybe like that point of finding the best in the hard, suffering parts of life. I think that's, well, maybe some people take it just as an advice, but I think there is a bit of religious kind of thinking hidden in there.
Yeah, maybe. Could be.
Well, now I also want to ask, because I looked at the weather and we've been just talking about how it's sunny and nice outside. I don't know. Do you know exact temperature right now outside?
I guess it would sort of be like 13 degrees or something.
13 degrees. Well,
I don't know.
That's pretty good. But I looked online, and in Rabat it's plus 20, sunny.
Really?
You know, it's almost like a beach day. You can go. I don't know. Do they have sea there at Rabat or no? They do, right?
Yeah.
So you can go there. You can get tanned. You can. I mean, do you regret not just staying there?
No, no, no. It was good to have that experience and to realize how much I don't know.
Yeah.
But that would also imply that I would need to give up the life I have here.
So you like your life in the Netherlands. You think Netherlands is perfect for you?
Yeah, I couldn't come up with any other place where the possibilities, at least I have, are so incredible. Where things are arranged in such a good way. Yeah, I feel fortunate to be able to live here.
Well,
Definitely.
that might be like a trivial point, but I'm honestly really interested in you as a Dutch person living in the Netherlands, because
Mm.
I've only been here 2 years, right? And I don't speak Dutch. I tried learning Dutch in the previous semester, and
Mhm.
it wasn't a good attempt. And I no longer take Dutch classes. I took Italian now because I still need the 6 points to
Well, there you
pass.
go again. You study something because you need the points.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I enjoy Italian and I enjoyed learning Dutch, but it's a very hard language. But my point is that I don't know. Like, I see some good things about the Netherlands and the culture, of course. You know,
Mhm.
like even in Groningen, like I was just amazed. I even called my father to tell him about this when they had a like a running event in Groningen
Mhm.
where they just like blocked some streets, and they
Mhm.
had like the guys in yellow jackets who directed the traffic
Mhm.
and stuff like that, and it was really organized. But the thing that shocked me about it, because it's, you know, it's not Amsterdam, it's not Hague, it's Groningen, right?
Mhm.
It's not even a city, it's like a town, or maybe some would say a village, but I'm not gonna go that far. And but the thing is, they blocked. Well, they had a big road in the center where you probably can't block it because it's just too much traffic going through there, like even buses and stuff. So what they did instead is for one day, literally for the day of that event, they built a bridge
Mhm.
that goes over the street so
Yeah.
that people could cross it
Yeah.
for one day. And
Yeah.
me being Russian, you know, me being coming from a huge 13 million population Moscow, I would never ever expect something like this to happen, you know, especially in
Yeah.
Moscow. So it just that little thing that I noticed that kind of
Mm.
showed me
Yeah.
the quality of how things are done in the
Yeah.
Netherlands. Is that what you're talking about when you speak about how you like living in the Netherlands?
I guess I am. Yeah. The moment I came back from Rabat, I guess it was at the end of the summer break or something, I needed to go back to the Hanze because I had to assess some graduation work from students.
Yeah.
So this was sort of like the last week of the summer break, and no one was there. Only the people who had to be there because of the assessment.
Mm.
And they had organized a lunch for the assessors. And literally a day before I had to be in Groningen, I was still in Rabat. I was at my host family, and they had this tagine. I don't know if you know what a tagine
No,
is. Like,
tell me.
it's a big dish, and they put it on the floor. We all just sit on the ground on the floor.
You sat on the ground.
We sit on the ground. We
With your
eat
hands?
with our hands,
Okay.
and the whole family was there, and neighbors, and we're all eating from this giant.
And you weren't too happy about that.
I loved it.
Oh,
Yeah,
you
of
loved
course,
it?
yeah.
Okay.
And then I came back, and I had to be there at the Hanze and for this lunch, and apparently something went wrong, and they had this whole table filled with sandwiches, and then this secretary woman came to me from the Hanze, and she had this Excel sheet, and she said, "What's your name? You're not on my list. You're not on the sheet, so you can't get a sandwich."
Wow.
And then the difference between the how it was arranged in Rabat and how welcome I felt, and
Yeah.
this me not getting a sandwich because my name wasn't on an Excel sheet, that was a striking
Yeah.
difference as well. On the other hand, the fact that you can complain about the Hanze or any organization in a Western European country, but yeah, stuff needs to be organized, I guess.
Yeah.
And there is some. It could be of added value that you have protocols and procedures, and maybe
Yeah.
sometimes we overdo it. But I'm happy that that stuff is
Oh,
predictable.
you have no idea how happy I am about it, you know, because
Okay.
you know, bureaucracy, of course. I mean, the lists and everything. Like, they probably didn't have the Excel sheet in Rabat for you to sign up on, but I think it's still amazing to have structure, because structure, really, if you think about it, like, that's what makes the fabric of society, right? Is structure.
True. Yeah.
And if there is no structure, then society starts to fall apart, right? And that there is actually, it's so valuable for me to realize that there is so little that separates us from absolute mad chaos, anarchy. You know, there is really, it's just people who stand up every day and they really early and they go and they operate the bus for. That's another thing that shocked me, by the way, like standing on the bus station and looking at the screen and seeing like 2 minutes before bus, 1 minute before bus, and then you see the bus, you know. And it's really mind-blowing. Like I couldn't believe it. And it's things like that, and it's, of course, people doing their job, but also like following that system that keeps the Netherlands from becoming something pretty chaotic, I guess.
I didn't do research on this, obviously, but I do think you could make a link. If you would investigate, let's say, the amount of bureaucracy, if you would ever be able to measure this, and let's say how well a country is doing in terms of production and GDP. I guess you would probably. My gut feeling tells me that if you have more bureaucracy, if things are arranged and put in protocols and forms and registers and Excel sheets, the more control there is, the more procedures there are, the more effective you can work, the more clearer it is what people have to do and what they don't have to do. The more productive you would be, and of course you can argue how when
when it's too much,
when it's too much. Of course, I agree with you. To give you an example, I had to I had a meeting with a client, and usually I would sort of arrange like flowers for the client to thank the client for his efforts.
I should have got you flowers today.
You should,
Igor. I didn't.
If I would just normally just like 2 days before this meeting would take place, I would send the secretary an email. Could you arrange flowers? Then I'm 100% sure that the day of the presentation, in her office there will be flowers. But this time I forgot about it. So I went to her office and I said, "Do we have something for my client?" Then she opened her shelf and she had like 20 beautifully wrapped bottles of wine.
Okay.
Right? And those are the moments I think, wow, we really thought of everything.
And I'll give you an example of the opposite point. There is a city in Russia, I forgot what it was, but I just recently, it was like an actual news article that I wrote, or that I read like 2 days ago. But it was still snowing in Russia. And in one city, it was a big city, you know, and they had a huge pile of snow in the middle of the street that wasn't getting cleaned up, you know, and you know, that's not like the worst thing that can happen, but it's just like the facilities that they're made for cleaning the streets, they just weren't doing their job properly, right? They weren't handling it properly. And the one guy, very smart and maybe a guy with a sense of humor, he came to the street and he took a bottle of paint and he wrote on the huge pile of snow, he wrote with the paint, Navalny. And Navalny is the name of the Russian opposition leader, like the only guy who is kind of, well, maybe not the only one, but one of the few people who is doing these kind of videos showing the absurdity of Russian government and the amount of crime they commit on, like, in the wide open, and the corruption and stuff like that. He is a very controversial character. But he wrote his name on the pile of snow, and the next day it wasn't there. They removed it finally, you know. You know, that's just the way, like how everything is not working properly, you know, and how sometimes you need to give that external motivation to people to do something.
That's true. If I can say one more thing about bureaucracy and maybe the Hanze. Students sometimes complain about the bureaucracy of the Hanze and about the forms and stuff. and then they go to their study abroad and their internship, and then they come back and they sort of think, oh, thankfully we're at the Hanze again.
Yeah.
Stuff is arranged so well here.
Yeah. That's what I also tell like my friends as well. People say, I want to go to Ghana to study, or I want to go to, I don't know, Japan, and no, I don't have anything against those countries, but I'm just saying, like, man, you're probably gonna have fun, but just don't remember that you are already living in a probably one of the countries where you would ideally want to stay, right? Like, for experience, for 4 months abroad, that's nothing bad to go in Ghana,
No.
but to live there, that's a totally different story, in my opinion. Yeah. Okay. Well, now let me ask you a question that I asked you before, because this is just a memory that I have, and it's one of the kind of awkwardest moments of my life, and it's related to you. So
Okay.
I wanted to run this by you. Well, it's first day of university, right? Or one of the first days. Maybe there was like an open day before, but that's just when you stand in line with the documents, with getting everything sorted out. And this day was actually like the first day of class. And for me, I never been in university before, so it's like I finished high school and I come to the Netherlands, and this is my first day. So I'm very nervous, and I'm very, I don't know what to expect, there is a full class of people who I have no idea who they are. I don't know their names. I don't know where they're from. Like most of them are girls, like which makes me a bit more uncomfortable. But what you did, because you were the teacher in the class, I guess, and what you did, you said, let's make like a half circle with putting chairs in a half circle, and let's sit on those chairs, right? So now we're sitting in the half circle, like it's almost like a, I don't know what, like a campfire kind of scenario. And then you said, no, please hold hands of people around you, and we did. And then you asked one by one. It was from oldest to youngest, and you asked everybody to share something that they noticed about the person sitting to the left of them, and so that kind of went through the whole half circle. And yeah, that experience, I'm just curious, like, what made you think that that's a good idea, and maybe it was a good idea. Just tell me about it.
Well, to be honest, I don't even remember the whole holding hands.
So for you, it was just another day at work, right? For you, it wasn't a big deal.
No, I probably wasn't as nervous as you are, but whenever I meet students for the first time, I'm still pretty nervous.
Okay.
Because I know how much I'm going to be working with you.
Mm-hmm.
I always try to make sure that I work with a group of students at least like half a year.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm also nervous I want to make a good impression too. But did I really ask you to hold hands?
Well, I'm not sure about that point, because I've spoken about it with Laura, and she also does remember holding hands. But for some reason, I do. Maybe I was just so uncomfortable that I imagined holding somebody's hands.
Yeah,
but
it could be. Well, I think partly it was because I wanted you to realize that you're going to be stuck with each other. You're going to have to work with each other.
Okay.
So, and I thought this would be a good moment to sort of. It's sort of like an icebreaker as well, right?
Yeah.
Saying stuff about each other. Was there also this guy who said that he thought that...
He was a Dutch guy, right?
Yeah, he was a Dutch guy, and he said something about that he thought that the girl next to him was hot or something.
The Josephine, that she was
like
next
a hot
to him.
chick.
I remember. Yeah, she was like,
Yeah.
I think this girl is really hot. Yeah, it was inappropriate, right?
I immediately asked him to step outside when I had you working, and I told him that that is not what.
Oh, you actually spoke to him afterwards about it?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
I don't want my students. They can think these kind of things, and they can do whatever they want if they're.
And we do.
In the city center of Groningen, and
right.
That's fine.
Right.
But that's not the
not the school environment
I want to have in my class.
But to his defense, like, he probably felt uncomfortable, and he probably just said, like,
true. Yeah.
Oh, you know what? Like, I'm just gonna go all in, and I kind of respect that, to be honest.
I fully understand why Daddy did it.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to make sure that is not what we're gonna do. The same as with cursing in my classroom.
You don't like it at all?
No, and I sometimes do make jokes about it. So sometimes when students, and it doesn't happen a lot, but if students curse, then I tell them in sort of like a joking way, please don't curse in my classroom, or don't use words like that in my classroom. Not because I want to punish them, but and not because I don't think you should be using those words. I just don't think they belong in a teaching environment.
Yeah, and it makes sense. You want to keep it professional and as
Yeah.
close to a kind of a real professional.
Exactly. Yeah. I sometimes I swear too. I use cursing words too, but I would never use it in my role as a teacher. But to come back to your question, so it was about an icebreaker, and I have different strategies to sort of have people who meet each other for the first time, sort of to getting to engage with each other. And sometimes sometimes it's also about not having me being the center of attention. Right?
So putting attention from you to actually other students.
If you all look at me, then you're all expecting something from me. And of course, you do need to expect something from me. But a large part of what's going to happen in your study has to come from you. So I immediately wanted to show that it's not about me. It's partly about me, but it's largely about you and how you work together.
And I think that's like almost a psychological kind of approach, like especially like with breaking the ice and stuff like this.
Yeah.
I think teaching in general, and I wanted to just pick your mind a little bit on the topic of teaching. It's on one side, it's very simple. Like they give you material that you have to communicate to students, right? Certain facts and certain concepts like Hofstede, I don't know, whatever. But then on the other side, it's also like this kind of psychological game where you not only is your job to communicate, but also to kind of psychologically play with the class and to. This is very complicated to me, and I don't have a clear idea of what it entails in your profession. So maybe you can tell me about it.
That's true. You're absolutely right. In the beginning, I thought it was as you described it. You would just tell people how the world works, and you're expecting them to do something with it.
Yeah.
But the longer I started, I was working, and the more I got experience in teaching, I started to find out how incredibly difficult it is. That it's, of course, I don't have that much comparison, but it's incredibly difficult. And of course, you have psychological tricks and there are strategies you could use. But every class is different, every student is different, every moment of the day, every moment of the week is different. Dealing with a second-year student is different than dealing with a first-year student. It also depends on the kind of, on the topic, on the type of material. So it's really very difficult.
It probably takes just a lot of trial and error to get familiar with it, like in terms of being
definitely.
A teacher, right?
Yeah, it's about finding out where you stand. And that takes at least in my case.
Have you made mistakes with students where you said something and it maybe got like a total different reaction from what you're expecting? Maybe like somebody started crying or had like a response that you really didn't wish for?
I can't remember. Sometimes students do cry because of them failing something for the second time and therefore getting like a study delay. And there have been miscommunications, but I also I guess another thing I found out, rather than sort of me being the teacher and you being the student and sort of playing this power game. It's more about me trying to figure out how I can help you and sort of create this something that is mutual. And then see what I can do for the student, what the student demands. I know that the approach that I have with other students will never work with you. And I know that certain things that I might do with some of our other AC students that works very well with them will never work with you, and it also works the other way around.
Yeah, that's really oriented profession, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. And then as you teach, you have to make distinctions, and you have to switch between treating the class as a class or treating the class as 25 individuals, and sometimes that needs to happen like within 5 seconds. So it's very difficult. The longer I teach, the more I find out that there's so many things about teaching that I don't know, and that's the nice thing about it as well. Initially, I thought it was all about me. That I was the center of attention, and there were so many things that I didn't even know I knew these. I didn't know these things, and then I found out that I don't know all these things. And now I'm sort of starting to become aware of the things I still don't know. Yeah, so that, and I guess I hope that will be a process that will continue for many more years.
Okay, well, I guess I have to gradually conclude because we've been rolling for an hour, and for me, I don't know about you, but for me it flew by like 10 minutes, it feels like. But I know you're first of all a very busy professional individual and also sick right now, so I hope you feel better. But I want to ask one last question, and I guess you already partly answered it. Is you've been teaching for a very long time, and you said that one of the interesting parts about this profession is that the amount of things you learn from it doesn't really run out, or doesn't seem to be running out. You constantly find out new details about individuals and how every student is different, and the teaching methods as well. But let's imagine that you will teach for the rest of your life, right? Like right until retirement. I don't know what is the retirement age in the Netherlands.
I guess you could retire at like 62 or 63, but the average is like 65, and it's increasing every year.
Yeah, because the life expectancy is also increasing.
Yeah.
And how old are you right now, if you don't mind me asking?
37.
37. So imagine like 30 more years of teaching, right? If you just look and you imagine that journey in your life, like what keeps you motivated to look forward to that with a smile rather than with feeling like it's some kind of a burden?
Well, I don't look at the teaching at my work as an isolated thing. I always look at my life in its totality, let's say. So it's also my private life.
So wise.
My professional life, and there are these need to be in some form of balance. And there used to be a time where where I could spend way more time on my professional career than on my private life. And now having 2 kids, the balance is more on the private life than on the professional life. So it's nice that I sort of know what it is that I can expect in terms of tasks and responsibilities. And I've learned that I'm not the kind of person who is going to be planning these kind of things. Maybe it's going to be a couple more years of teaching. Maybe it's going to be something else. I've experienced that it gives me a lot of freedom to not think about it in the terms that you were describing. But I would definitely not say no to another couple more years of teaching.
Well, that's good, and I hope that I get some more of your professional teaching come my way as well. If not, that's also fine. We can always have you back on as a guest. Fascinating things you told us today. I want to say thank you for the studio and the microphones and everything and the space that they provided. Kudos studio. Thank you very much. And I want to say thank you for my guest, Mart Wegman.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.